Okay, we've got a real banger of an episode. I think it wasn't that long ago, but I shared a bit of my code, my AI coding workflow. I feel like I don't remember when that was or how long ago it was, but I have since gone absolutely ham on the AI building coding, and I'm very excited to share some of my learnings. I have a higher level of confidence that I'm at least, I know what I'm talking about a little bit, or at least I know how little I know. I have experimented a lot more, and so I'm here to share some of those thoughts with you, and I believe that I'm not the only one, that other people are also beginning to fiddle with this more, for better or for worse, and so we're going to talk about that. I'm gonna walk you through how I'm using it in my daily workflow, a couple of different models that I use, how I pick between different models, how I prompt, some of the tips and tricks that I've been using to help me succeed. And as you all have questions, please feel free to ask those. I'm going to invite the rest of my team. If we didn't know, you all are just contributors to the rest of the DevRel team here at SDF. I prioritize my good friend Elliot and Karsten and their questions as we all learn how to be better programmers. One of my favorite, I think I tweeted it a while ago, this idea that if you're using AI to do less work, you're using it wrong. And I do feel that there are a lot of people that are starting to use AI to like free up their time instead of using AI to do more and more work. So I would strongly encourage those of you within the sound of my voice to really try and emphasize doing more work, not less. We're going to be entering a wild world. We're already starting to see, like, look up Reddit, news articles of like developers that have like 5 or 6 jobs at like junior or even some like mid-level engineering roles, and AI agents are doing all of their work for them. And that may seem scammy, but that is the future of productivity. They can get away with it because, let's be honest, AI is really good at coding now. So you don't need to be afraid, you just need to be productive. And I'm here to try and help some folks figure out exactly how I'm doing that. I'm very excited. I'm not afraid that AI is going to take my job. I do think some people will have to level up, but that's not a whole lot different than technology's been for ages. It's just now it's a lot of fun, where before maybe it was a lot of work. So anyway, enough yammer yammer. Let's get busy. The first thing that I actually want to do is actually go to lovable.dev. It's LOVA. There's no E in Lovable, which is crazy to me. But all right. And let's just start here, because this is probably one of those tools that I used early on and was like, there's no future in this. Lovable's garbage. The interfaces that it builds are generic and uninteresting and yawn. They still kind of are. But what I found to be really interesting is I've gotten better at prompting and helping AI know what I want. And as these models have improved, tools like Lovable are getting better and better. So the idea of Lovable is like full stack applications all built with AI. So the front end even has connections with things like Subabase, where you can get the back end plugged up. All of the hatred we've had for like GUI and WYSIWYG editors and no code tools. You thought no code tools were bad. Just try Lovable. But what's so fascinating to me about these tools, it's kind of like this idea of serverless applications, which is like, they definitely still is a server. Codeless tools or no code tools, there's definitely code. It's just the user doesn't interact with it quite so much. And this is kind of that, where there's tons of code, but the code's pretty good and it's written by AI. You can still access it. You can download it off of GitHub. You can go open it up in your code editor. It's a great place to start. It's a really good tool for prototyping random stuff. I've been using it. I'm working on a game backend for money. using a fee vault. So players deposit, I talked about this before, but players deposit money into a fee vault. That fee vault generates money. So users contribute by like putting in $100, and then everybody puts that in and it goes into the fee vault. The fee vault generates yield, and then that yield gets distributed to game players. So an interesting incentive to get people to play your game by giving them actual money, all generated off of DeFi yield. But anyway, I've been making a bunch of like little goofy coding games. You can see some of them down here. And Lovable's been great at that. And I actually just want to start really quick by attempting to do a prompt of this just to kind of maybe inspire. Again, the crazy thing with AI is it's a little bit unpredictable. You can give it the exact same prompt and get a little bit different answer. But I'm going to try this. I think dictation is working. This is a tool I like to use. If there's nothing else you walk away with the idea that AI is very good at coding. It's terrible at knowing what you want. So you have to really explicitly tell it what you want. So how you prompt is going to be incredibly important. You may remember like back in the day, way back in the day when we used to use things like Stack Overflow and Google for searching things. A huge part of your success as an engineer was your ability to like find the right Stack Overflow, and people would take a lot of pride in their ability to like get Google to produce results that were useful. This is similar. It's just a lot more difficult, I guess, because you have to include a lot more information. And we like to be short and sweet and make a lot of assumptions. And AI is terrible at inferring what humans want. It's getting better slowly over time as more training happens, as people use it and correct it. It is improving on the intentions or assumptions that people have. But the less assumptions that you give to AI, the better the result will be. And so I have found that talking is a lot better than typing in many, many cases. It's a little weird if you're not used to like doing that already with speech to text. I certainly wasn't, and it's a little bit awkward to talk to a machine still for me. But I'm a lot better at talking than I am at writing as far as the speed of things goes. And so I have found that just by rambling, I'm getting way better results just universally across the board. So a lot of times I'll just talk instead of type. So I'm going to try to do that now. I want to make an asteroids game. I want it to be very cool, retro, pixelated, very engaging, kind of like an old school arcade game. I want you to use the best, latest, most modern programming languages and best practices, Tailwind, all that good stuff. But really focus on the experience, the controls, the interactivity. Really impress me. You know what I'm saying? Really go out there, do some deep research to ensure that you're really going to nail it. Don't make a lot of assumptions. Do the necessary research. Go forth and build me an amazing asteroids game. Okay, now I'm going to summarize. It may have sounded a little random, but there are a couple of key items in here that I want to call out in this particular prompt. I'm going to say, like, this is off the top of my head. A lot of times I'll ramble for like 5 minutes, but I'm not going to sit here and do that. But AI really does love rambling. It loves to hear a train of thought, so it doesn't even have to be concise. So don't hear in my encouragement towards prompting that you need to be concise or specific. A lot of times AIs will actually really appreciate you even changing your mind as you ramble, because it will help it produce some sort of logic train and understand the direction that you're trying to go, even in the corrections. Your mind is becoming more focused as you ramble. That's the way my mind works anyway. And that can be really helpful for AI to know where not to go, what assumptions not to make. You may have heard of like negative prompts. So oftentimes I'll just ramble and I'll even change my mind as I go, and I won't remove any of that. More context is better, particularly if it's moving in a specific direction. I'm calling out specific style elements like retro, pixelated, engaging, old school, arcade. Obviously, I'm going to want a game. I'm including information about the latest, most modern programming languages. So it's going to need, this is helping to clue it into, I might need to do more research if my training information is too old. I might need to do some like more modern internet searches or something to see what the latest and greatest is of the programming languages I'm using. That's important, particularly when you start to use more complex models like we'll use in a minute in Cursor. Including words like deep research, just research in general, will help clue the model in to not rely on the information it already has in its own database, but to go out and try and find more information. Not making a lot of assumptions will also clue it into that type of thing. One thing I've also found is that starting with kind of like your basic premise, right? Build an asteroids game. That will be the whole of a lot of people's prompts. It's not great. So include more, but start there. Start with what you want and then fill in that detail. It's kind of like a box, and then you put a lot of helpful pieces of information, components into that box. But the box is build an asteroids game. But starting and ending, kind of opening and closing that box, starting out, helps the LLM to understand kind of where you started and where you want to end. That I didn't start here with an asteroids game and then sort of ramble off the path to who knows what I exactly want. Kind of start and end with the same thing, almost in the same way that you would give a presentation or present an argument to someone. Is yes, there will be some rambling. I will fill the box of my argument with some stuff, but at the end of the day, what hasn't changed in the rambling, in the conversation, is that where I started and where I ended, those are the same thing. And if they're not the same thing, make that really explicit towards the end, where you kind of open the box, fill the box, close the box. So it may, again, seem a little bit random, but I have found this structure of prompting to produce really good results. Okay, I'm going to ship that off. That'll take its time. One of the wonderful things, kind of back in my vein of do more work, not less, is while you're waiting for AI to do something, context switch and move on to something else. So this would be the time when maybe I would switch over and start working on some presentations I'm going to be having for Meridian, which is coming up, and you should sign up for it. Hashtag not a sponsor, or wait, maybe it is, in hindsight. But switching over, doing like something completely different, it can be kind of hard for me to context switch between like coding projects, but I'm getting a little bit better. My like programming brain is getting better at thinking about solutions rather than thinking about specific implementations of solutions to problems. And that's allowed me to like just say like, okay, here's the problem. Here's kind of roughly how I'm thinking about solving it. Go and work and do your thing. And then I can relatively easily move over to a different problem in a completely different repo. And it's taken some time to get used to that because I'm used to deeply thinking about solutions to problems, where now I'm handing more and more of that actual solution generation over to AI. And now my job is more explaining those problems and helping AI to think through how it might best solve those problems, but not being super specific about how those solutions may be resolved or be arrived at, which frees up my brain a little bit more to context switch. It's really hard for me to context switch if I'm in a deep rut of thinking. And there may be times where you will deep rut, and that's fine. That's good. I love thinking deeply about problems and how to solve them. And then in the case where maybe you are waiting for a while on an LLM, you might switch over to something completely different. Generating AI graphics for your Discord thing that's coming up soon, or working on a presentation, a slide deck, maybe answering some Slack messages or emails, or time it with meetings or something like that allows your brain to kind of rest if you've been in one of those deep ruts. Okay, so now we're in Cursor. There's that's that. Let's switch over to another project, though, LaunchTube, and I'm going to set up an example scenario, a feature that I want to add to LaunchTube. And this is true generally. I have found LLM's AI is getting better at one-shotting things. One-shotting be the idea of like start from nothing and come up with something, like a project, like what we're doing in Lovable right now. It's not great, and it really does rely a whole lot on your initial prompt. But I do find generally from just a strict trying to be productive perspective, being more modular is going to be good. It'll go faster. The LLM won't take so long, which again it'll be expensive. And at the end of the day, you may produce a result that's completely useless to you. And you have to throw it all away, which is then a cost of money and sunk time. So keeping things modular will do two things. First, it will kind of keep that from happening, but it also helps you learn. Early on when I was playing with AI, I got really discouraged because it couldn't one-shot anything. I was trying to build big features, big apps, and was realizing it just is terrible at all of this. AI is not ready. And what was actually the case was I didn't know how to use it. I was using it maybe more like a Google search term sort of thing, looking for something very specific. I didn't understand how it works. Like we've got this brand new tool in our toolbox called AI, and we're not quite sure how to use it. Like, is this a power tool? Is this a hammer that's, got gasoline in it? What is this thing? And using it on a little bit at a time on small projects has helped me learn what it's good at. And this is especially true when you start to deal with all of the different models. I had like model paralysis early on of like, I have no idea. There are so many models. There's so many companies. I don't know which one I'm supposed to use. Why is there a brain icon next to some of these? What the heck is max mode? There was a lot of questions just generally, and that was specific to Cursor. And going like slowly with small implementations, little features and add-ons to your application, using it a little bit here, a little bit there as an augment to your regular workflow helped me learn. So I would strongly encourage, if you're new or feel like you've tried AI and it just doesn't work for you, to retry. Always be retrying, trying with different models, trying in different contexts, trying with different prompts. Don't make it this like agonizing thing, but fiddle with it in different contexts. That's going to help you learn which models are better for different things, how you work best with AI. I'm actually convinced that different people will interact with the same AI in different ways just because of the way their brain works and how they're used to working. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, all that to say, I want to add a feature to LaunchTube. We have this problem right now with LaunchTube where it just gets gob tons of requests. And I love it, but not all traffic is created equal. And I would like to add some rate limits, some inbound rate limits, but I want to be careful the way that I implement it. And by careful, I really just mean based off of IP, like something relatively simple, nothing global. I was implementing some like region-based IPs, IP bands. Didn't love that. So that's all removed. And now we're just getting flooded with requests. So I want to add a new feature that adds IP rate limits to LaunchTube. Okay, so I have like in my head how this feature would be added, or I guess what the outcome of the feature is, right? In requests are coming in, they're being checked for their IP. If the same IP is submitting too many requests, it will lock them out for a certain amount of time. This is all important. Like you need to go through the process, the mental work of figuring out how you would solve your problem. Where I think many times when I code, I'm like, I don't really know what I want. I'm just going to start coding. I kind of have some idea of where I'm going, but I haven't really thought through things. And this is where dictation and just talking through will become really helpful. But it's not just the solutions. The thing to keep in mind again with AI is it's incredibly intelligent. Like when they say this is a, what do they say? What are those people that get degrees and they're really smart? PhD. There we go. There's like a PhD in your pocket. We can tell, how to say you don't have a PhD without saying you don't have a PhD. I assume it feels a little bit like that. Okay, yeah, sure. It doesn't know how to spell blueberry, but I don't know that, I hope people aren't going to college to figure out how to spell blueberry. So let's not be too harsh. It's being trained on something that's useful, not how to spell blueberry. So it's an incredibly intelligent machine, but it's also kind of like Dory from Finding Nemo. It's got a absolutely awful memory. And it's not just bad at remembering things, it's like really good at forgetting things. It like actively will forget everything it's done, everything that you've told it. And you feel like you've had this whole relationship that you guys have crafted together, this beautiful piece of work. And it doesn't even know who you are day by day and prompt by prompt. And that is a really weird way to interact with a programmer, which is very much the way that you feel like you're working with it, right? You're having this conversation and you're prompting it and giving it instructions. And it's like, yes, sir, a good point. And you feel like you're almost forming this weird pseudo-human relationship with it, but it can't remember your name like prompt to prompt. It has no idea who you are. It doesn't know what you're working on. It'll start writing in a completely different programming language. And you have to remember that all of the time. You're providing context. AI is all about the information that it has before it starts doing work. The bulk of the work of getting AI to do what you want it to do is giving it all of the information it needs to succeed before you ever get started. And you are assuming that it's coming in with like zero knowledge. It's got loads of skill and very little knowledge. And that's true for every single time you ask it to do anything. Okay? And that's really hard to keep in mind. I still have trouble keeping that in mind. But it's literally like, somebody walks through the door. They're an incredible programmer. They don't know what Stellar is. They don't know what Web3 is. They don't know what JavaScript is. But they're really talented at coding. And so you have to introduce them to best modern programming practices, the code base you're using, the files they need to edit. Context is everything for getting AI to do anything useful. And most of the complaints that I hear of AI is just not there yet is like, well, what context did you give it? And they're like, I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. I just told it to build it. feel like I was pretty specific. My guess is you didn't provide a good context, and everything revolves around context. And there's many different ways. I think that's maybe one of the harder things. First, I was like, what model should I use? And then I was like, what context do I provide? And then how do I get that context into the engine before I start to queue the thing up? And this is where a lot of things are improving, where it's getting a lot easier, where models are actually like filling up their own context based off of the query, where it will go and craft its own context first before it tries to start doing work. And that's amazing. That's a huge innovation. That's also kind of like, why didn't we do that first? But you can also be more specific, but we have to keep in mind that as we add context, that's feeding up against the context windows. So you can see you've got a context window with these different models, 272,000 context window. What is 272,000? I still have no idea. Is that characters? Is that bytes? I have no idea. I just know the 272 is probably more than some of these other ones, which have less. There's one that says 200,000. So what does it mean? Clueless. What I do know is that 272 is more than 200, and 200 is still quite a lot because there's some that have even less. And that you will start to run up against those windows, those context windows, as you add more files. So like if I go and I say, I want you to add the files and folders from something like source, it'll try and like grab all of the files in that source, and it will fill up those context windows very, very quickly. So you want to be specific. A lot of times, to be perfectly honest, at this point, early on when I was doing all this, I would be like, okay, I really got to think through what files does it need. Now I'll just include like, think about it, build your own context window, and just kind of start from not really much context window at all. You've got things like files you can add, like there's a Claude MD file, there's a cursor.md file that can give like context and information about the project and how you want it treated. I would look into those. I haven't found them to be terribly useful, and I've actually found them to be really hard to make where they're useful, because if you start to leave things out of those context windows, or those context clues is what I found, like context clue files, it just hasn't been very useful, and will often limit its usefulness because now it's restricted by this probably AI generated file about how it should think about how to craft and construct. So I don't even include those many times in my own windows, because I believe AI has gotten a lot better at building its own context if you tell it a little bit more specific. So I don't often use actually this context window unless I know, or if it's a monolith repo that just has loads of stuff that's unrelated. Stellar Scaffold would be a good example where you've got contracts and you have interfaces. I will be like, don't fiddle with anything in the web interface. I just want to fiddle with the contract. So only Rust code. I'll include that. Or I'll just drill in, right? I won't open the whole project, the whole monolith project. I'll just open the folder that has the files that I want it to touch. You can fiddle around with those yourself, but context is incredibly important. But that also begs the question, well, if you're not doing anything with this button, how are you getting context in? Amazing question. That's where MCP servers come into play. MCP servers that's the context, baby. MCP servers are everything for getting answers out of AI that you want, particularly when you're fiddling with Web3 projects, which probably nobody's on the whole, nobody's really building Web3 apps. There's a way less training information, and those repos change so fast. The tools change so fast. So the index, it's still trying to use Sorbonne CLI just natively. It knows nothing about Stellar. It knows nothing about Protocol 23. So you're going to have to be using MCP servers to grab relevant, up-to-date context. And when I say MCP servers, I only use a few. And Tools and integrations. If you go to the cursor settings, there's a tools and integrations, and I've got a few of them here. And these are the ones you'll want to get. The Context 7 and DeepWiki are if you could only have one, use DeepWiki. If you can have two, use Context 7. I love, we'll get to Playright in a minute. I love Perplexity. If you have an account, you have to have an account. Perplexity is like the AI-powered search engine. So it's really good for unrelated, like a non-NPM package or code repo packages for just doing like internet searches that are up to date. And then I have Cloudflare docs because I do everything with Cloudflare these days. And they've got a docs server that's got a couple of tools for finding relevant up-to-date information about how to use Cloudflare, which I'll actually probably be using in the prompt I'm about to write. DeepWiki is amazing. If you haven't used it before, it's a tool, free tool that indexes all of the GitHub repos, and you can ask questions. Let me open up, just by way of example, I've been using this Script3 Fee Vault DeepWiki a ton to find information about how things work in this Fee Vault v2 from Script3. You can see there's a GitHub. You just grab the GitHub link, and then you can, in DeepWiki, you just add repos to it, and it's completely free. It's amazing. And what's amazing about DeepWiki is they've got an MCP server, which essentially just opens up this file when you tell it what repo to look up, and then it can actually ask questions. So give me an example of how to write a test from this repo. So if you're writing some contracts with Stellar and it just doesn't have a clue how to do it, pop in one of these example repos, which does write tests appropriately and knows exactly what it looks like. And it will send all of this information back to the context as it's trying to write it and give you the best practices for how to write really good Soroban tests. It's amazing. You don't have to assume that LLMs will just do the indexing appropriately. You can feed it, hey, I know this Fee Vault repo is really good at writing tests. Please use this as a reference when writing this test for this Soroban contract. And it will just do it. And it's awesome. It's an absolute game changer. And that's true for any repo you could imagine, which it does require you to like have some knowledge about what repos are relevant and good, but that work is a little bit easier than just waiting for LLMs to get good at writing Soroban contracts. Okay, so that's that tool. Context 7 is really similar to DeepWiki, but it's a little bit more JavaScript heavy, I felt like. I don't know. I use it less than I use DeepWiki right now, but it's also a really good one and super, super popular. Tons of people use this. The third one is Playright. If you're doing front-end development and you don't like the way something looks, you can use Playright to open up a window, take a screenshot, and then it can do design tweaks based off of what it sees. So it's like giving your LLM eyeballs into your project. So just an incredible, if you've not used Playright, it's commonly used for like doing interface diffs in testing to see what changed in the interface. Like you click on this button and navigate over here and see if everything works and if it looks good and if the mobile view looks nice. But Playright has an MCP server, which has a bunch of these tools, which can open up a window, shrink the window down to a mobile view, take a screenshot, feed that screenshot into the LLM. It does a review of overflowing text and images that don't look good, and it'll put in all the Tailwind CSS to make a mobile view. It's an amazing tool for interface developers to start using this tool to make your actual interfaces look nice. So I've been using Playright a lot to fix visual bugs as I build out dApps. Okay, so those are my MCP tools for Cursor. And you can just, anytime you find an MCP server, it'll have kind of the same sort of rules for how to add them. I think if we were to click new, it actually opens up a JavaScript file. So you can edit that, add in your new tools and search features or whatever you might need. Quite nice, which also allows you to then share it with other people as you build out MCP servers. I'm still rooting that someday we'll get a Stellar-specific MCP server, which will be absolutely insane at giving relevant information, but everybody has to go at Jane to get that off the ground. I think she's working on it, but we'll see what happens. For now, DeepWiki's awesome and totally sufficient. Okay, so let's start our prompt here. I'm going to open this up a little bit wider and maybe make the page just a tiny bit bigger. I'm going to turn on dictation and we'll rock and roll. Oh, wrong window. There we go. I want to add a feature to this project that rate limits inbound requests by IP address. This should use Cloudflare's Durable Objects feature. And I would suggest that you look up the Cloudflare docs via the MCP server tool that you have to do some research on how best to pull this off to ensure it's relevant and up to date. Also, this feature should only limit on the post / endpoint, the one that actually does that like launch service. I only want to block that one via this new feature. This feature should also rate limit off of a new global variable. I want to be able to fiddle with that global variables. I'm not exactly sure what I want it to be, so make those variables that I can fiddle with to limit, I think, the duration and like the number of requests before it starts to hit that limit. I would also suggest you make use of the Deep Wiki or Context 7 tools as needed to get the most relevant and up-to-date information for any of the tools that you may use. Ensure you're following the best programming practices, maintain consistency with the rest of the project. And finally, icing on the cake, write me a basic test script, which utilizes the local test environment for Cloudflare and allows me to test this rate limit feature. All right, I'm going to assume that it spelled everything correctly, and I'm going to ship that off, and we'll see what it does. It's using the new GPT-5. I did not turn on max mode. Max mode just gives it more context, or allows a maximum context. It does get a little pricey. We'll see what GPT-5 does on its own. Normally I would turn on max mode, but I forgot, so we'll see what happens. Let's go back to our Lovable app and see what we've got here. It's like opening a little Christmas present. You're not quite sure what's going to happen when you open. Apparently I can press enter. Oh my goodness. Ow! Oh, it's got sound. Can y'all hear the sound? I love the little... Ah! Okay. Oh, I can move. Die, asteroid. Ouch! How many lives do I have? Oh my goodness, there's so many. Okay, so anyway, all we've learned is... I mean, I'm not terrible at asteroids, but it just one-shot a full asteroids game, and all I had to do was just kind of talk to it. Yeah, there's some new features I may want to add. It's very pixelated, which I guess I asked for, so maybe that's on me. But that's awesome, and I can go and publish this if I wanted to, just like that. I think it's got a preview window. It should give me a published once this finishes, and then I can share this, and everybody can go and play asteroids. Copy link. Let me paste that in the chat. And just like that, zero coding. Everybody can go and play asteroids now, and you can hear for yourselves the incredible sound effects that it for some reason added. I mean, why not, right? It's a retro game. But this is, I don't know. I don't care who you are. This is insane. This is absolutely amazing that you could just build games so quickly with nothing but a single prompt. Like, there's more stuff, sure, that I might want to add, but that's just nuts to me. Like little me from way back in the day playing and wanting to build games. This is nuts. This is so crazy. This is such a different world we're living in now. To be able to pull stuff like this off. And that's a really basic example. You just like sky's the limit. Like add some additional features and functionality. Portals that travel you to other worlds. Like it's really just up to your imagination and your ability to prompt well. Yeah, maybe learn some coding where you can go in there and get really specific. But this is such a crazy world that we live in now. And one of the things that excites me about this game thing that I'm building is this: if we can one-shot games like this and just build up like a whole collection of arcade games that are all connected to this like pot of money that people can win when they play these retro games, and then just let the community make a bunch of AI games and they all connect it relatively simply to the back end of playing games and winning. And I've got ideas about factions and stuff. Like, I've got some interesting ideas, but the community could just build those games. It's such a different world that we live in, where some really cool stuff is possible that just hasn't ever been possible before through tools like Lovable in this case. And it just gets better every couple of weeks. It feels like the tool gets better. Like AI is helping the Lovable devs to make Lovable better at astronomical rates, and then people use it at crazy rates, building new things, and everything's training and it's moving quickly, and that's awesome. It doesn't have to leave you behind. You should now be free to not be so busy coding and learning how to code, and a lot more free to actually learn how to use the tool to just ship more stuff. Okay, we've looked at Lovable, we looked at DeepWiki. This is still rolling. One thing I have found, and I don't know if this is just because GPT-5 is new and they're still tuning in on all this stuff and it's making its way into all of the tools like Cursor, and how they make their unique spin on getting it to think and read and call MCP servers and all this stuff. I'm not sure, but it takes a long time. It thinks for a while, which isn't the worst because it allows us to do other things, other work. One of the things that I want to call out that I haven't done a whole lot of experimenting with, but is like probably the biggest next thing, I think, is this idea of AI agents. Everybody's got an idea of what an AI agent is, but when I'm talking about it in reference to this, I'm really talking about this like oversightless, autonomous programmer that just does stuff for you. For example, there's 3 of these that I have currently that I played. I did the exact same thing. Basically gave it all of them the exact same prompt of adding this rate limiting feature to LaunchTube, and said, just go ahead and build it and then make a PR and put it in there and somebody can review it later and maybe they'll merge it, maybe they won't. But the idea being there are these AI agents that can just look at a code base, find issues with it, and just kind of maintain it on its own, right? One of the things being it could look at issues that a repo has and take those issues, feed it through an LLM, figure out how to solve the issue, read all the code, start iterating on a solution, build out the tests for that solution, see if all the tests pass, and then give you a PR at the end of the day that maybe a coder or the community reviews and sees if it actually solves the problem or not. But the level of human involvement in healing software, improving software, that like loop is getting much, much shorter and more autonomous, which is terrifying, but also really interesting to me. You could imagine I build out a cool new app like this game, I ship it, and somebody's like, you know what? I would really like to be able to like customize the color of the lasers. And I'm like, that does sound cool, but I don't have the time to fiddle with that because I'm working on something else. They could make an issue that describes their feature request, and then that feature request from GitHub goes into this agent. It looks it up. It does some analysis on whether or not it thinks it actually wants to build it, and then it goes and codes a whole new feature about how to add custom colors to the lasers to the asteroid game, builds a PR, and everybody can just immediately start playing with it, using it. Maybe it's on a preview window. They all test it. They decide whether they love it or not, and maybe it gets merged if it reaches a certain threshold of approval or something. There's so many interesting ways you could like have software maintain itself through its actual use, right? So you've got people that are actually benefiting from that software, and instead of having to have like gatekeepers, maintainers, yes and no certain features, there can be a whole separate structure or flow for how issues get prioritized, developed, tested, approved, merged, branched, all very fascinating because this fundamental issue of software is expensive, and so we're going to have to be careful what we spend our time on. That has changed. Software is now cheap. It's cheap to make high quality software, and that's never been possible. That's never been true. Our whole, like every way we think about software, how we sell it, how we buy it, how we value it, is all under the premise that software is expensive. And now that software is cheap, everything changes, especially for like solo devs and people that just want to have fun or see the web change in ways that, yeah, nobody could actually spend all the time making this minuscule change or this little tweak, but it would make a huge difference to me. That now is absolutely possible. We just have to change the way the browsers work and the way the code review works and how updates get approved. That all has to change. but we never would have even thought about changing that before if software was expensive. But now software is cheap. And kind of my encouragement is it's never been a better time to like be angry, to like want the world to change, to like see things that you want changed in the world and actually be able to affect those changes because software is cheap to write. It's easy to build things, and it's getting better and better and better all the time. So fast. That's amazing. But it will require a lot of like infrastructure changes, and the gatekeepers have to rotate, which is maybe more philosophical, but things like these agents really prove to me, and I think prove the point in general, that we're in for a real whirlwind of change here in how software gets developed and improved. And I can't wait for more companies to start implementing AI agents that are directly connected to their users or the people that would benefit most from change, being able to impact what features get coded and then merged. And it could be that it comes out of like there isn't one URL that everybody's using, right? It's a little bit more decentralized than that, almost like IPFS, where you can just use whatever version of the code you currently want to use. And maybe you use a version that has certain features merged in that not everybody else wants. Not everybody believes they're safe. Not everybody believes they're necessary. You do. And so you can build out a version of this that's just hosted at a different URL, kind of like IPFS. That would be amazing. Welcome, Jerome. Hope your hair is clean. A few of those agents, one of them is from Cursor. Cursor just recently launched an agent mode, so you can definitely explore that. Comes with a lot of cool features and diff exploration. Another one's right inside of GitHub. Did you know that GitHub has Copilot/agents where you can chat directly with your code bases and implement changes? Pretty cool. Definitely explore that. And then also, of course, ChatGPT, OpenAI has their Codex, which honestly has kind of been garbage. Maybe it'll be better now that GPT-5 is out. I don't know. But I've had the least luck. I've played the most with the Cursor model just because I use Cursor the most. But I am really interested both in the GitHub model and even the Codex for doing these types of things, long-running agents. I even think Lovable has agents now. I haven't explored that at all. I think that was kind of a new announcement, but this is the way the world is going with software that just kind of writes itself. Sounds terrifying, but we'll see. Okay, so that's that. Let's go look and see if this has implemented anything. Looks like it's got a few things. We can see the files that it made. There's a rate limiter file, the index file it updated a few things for. So let's go look through some of those changes. So there's a new rate limiter file we can explore. Yep, not much code here, which is what we would expect. Rate limiters aren't that hard to add. Seems like a decent amount of code. It's got some defaults there for the capacity. I think it's probably the number of requests that can come in and then the duration for rate limiting. Just kind of reading through this code. You could also, I do love how it just gives you loads of information about this. Scan the code to find where to hook rate limiting. The main post endpoint is blah, 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 blah. So hopefully an index we'd see on the API launch right here. We've got a new file that does the rate limiting. Get milliseconds to next request. There must be a function for that. Rate limit exceeded. Very good. It gives us a retry after and X rate limit reset. Not exactly sure what this rate limit reset is. I'd have to do a little more research on what exactly it did there. Which, for what it's worth, there's an agent mode, which will actually plan, search, and build anything, coding, and then asking, which will just allow you to gain some additional insider information. So that may be where I would go into ask and say, can you explain this concept of the rate limit reset header and concept? Also, I saw a refill something or other in the rate limiter file. Can you explain that as well? Let's keep going through some of these. Looks like we got maybe an update to our load test. It looks like it just basically updated our existing load test and is now testing that against the rate limiter, which is probably fine. I might have preferred it to make a new test, which I could go and ask it to do, which it's still doing this. This is one of those instances where I should have switched the model. It doesn't need GPT-5 to explain what it already did. It has that context, even in its own immediate context. And so I'll get a very thorough answer, but it'll probably be overkill, and GPT-5 does burn through credits a lot faster. So, for example, I probably should have used Sonnet 4, probably even without the brain, and it could have done a perfectly fine job and cost me a lot less. Rate limit is the header is a hint to the client about when they can retry. In this code, when request is limited, we return retry after. It's a standard header, absolute epoch, time in milliseconds for the next. Oh, so it's like when and then how long. So what time stamp versus how many milliseconds until. So it kind of seems like it serves the same purpose. So I might want to dig into that more and maybe prefer one or the other. I could read through the rest of these, but to be honest, I'm not actually implementing this feature. But you kind of get some idea of how I would walk through this, asking questions. I will say I often forget to switch this model, so I think you can use command period to toggle between them. If you forget, you can always just switch it back. So anyway, that implements all those things. My guess is Wrangler Toml probably has a new migration with a new rate limit or durable object, which is what I asked it to implement. It's got 2 new variables, which is great. The number of max requests in the reset window, which is awesome. Looks like a minute. It's going to time out for a minute after 30 seconds. Amazing. So that's all good. That would be how I would implement that feature. I would probably do a little bit more in research into what exactly it did if I don't understand anything. I do want to spend some time understanding what it did before I just yeet things into production, making sure that it's not adding superfluous code, making sure it's using things like storage appropriately. I want to double check that it's actually using the appropriate IP address. Looks like it is. Love that. That all looks good. On durable object error fail closed to be safe. Okay, so it's basically if I can't rate limit, I'm just going to error. I might choose to do something different than that. If it can't find the rate limiter, just bypass and say, yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter that much that it rate limits. It's more if it can, and it should be able to. But I wouldn't want to block if I somehow maybe implemented this feature incorrectly. And every single request is going to error. That would probably be a problem. It would bring LaunchTube down. So I might want to say, added a little bit of additional logging so I can double check and make sure this feature is working. And then I could, re-add something like this. And so I could just catch it and not actually throw. But just researching, doing a little bit more work to make sure everything acts and behaving as expected. I'm going to undo all of these changes for now. I could always go back in here, I think, and re-implement them. I can't remember how. But anyway, that's all wonderful. That's how I would use the native cursor. There is one more tool I want to draw our attention to, and I think it's already been mentioned in the chat, but that is Claude. If you've not installed Claude Code, I would highly recommend it. It's an amazing tool. You don't even have to use it in an IDE. You could just use it in your terminal. Heck, I really want to stand up a Raspberry Pi that has access to a GitHub repo and just builds me startups and self-heals them and makes me loads and loads of money. And maybe Claude is the tool for the job. I don't know. But wouldn't that be amazing? But it's basically just a CLI that's attached to your Claude coding account, and it writes code for you. And it's amazing, and I love it so much. It does really well at most things. Some things it sucks at. And in those cases, I'll switch over to Cursor. I'll play between different models. The one issue with Claude is you really only get those 2 models, right? The Opus and Sonnet models. So if you want to use ChatGPT or Gemini, you can't. I will say that the Anthropic Claude tools are absolutely incredible. They're really good at coding. I think GPT-5 might be better, but it's also quite a bit slower than even Opus. So play around with it. I found it to also be a bit cheaper than Cursor. So I like it for that reason, especially if you're using Sonnet. So many times I'll actually use Claude to get things started. And then if I run into an issue, I'll switch over to GPT-5 in Cursor. Again, these are tools. They're tools in my toolbox to get the things done that I need to, that I want to. I'm learning still how to prompt, what tools, what models are best, how to prompt them best. It really is like you got a new tool in your toolbox and you're just not exactly sure how to use this dang thing. And you just kind of smack stuff with it and tweak it and fiddle with it over time, and you will absolutely get better. So I'm actually going to cheat here and reveal my hand and say I was reading, if you couldn't tell before, because I prompted this before. And so I'm just going to paste that in. I don't know. Can you dictate inside of, I mean, I'm sure you can, but anyway, I'm just going to paste this right back in and we'll see what this comes up with. It'll probably be somewhat similar, but who knows? I do think one thing to note is Claude does now have access to MCP tools, Claude MCP lists. And I think I've got most of them. I don't think I have Perplexity in there, but the other 4 I think I do. DeepWiki, Context 7, Cloudflare, and Playright all connected. So you can add MCP servers to Claude now, which is amazing. I do think this should go a little bit faster. One thing I love about one thing I do love about this is that it gives you a nice little to-do list where you'll see exactly what all it's doing. You do have to like give it approval. There's a flag you can add, like just do it mode. I'm not sure, where you don't have to prove things. I did not open up Claude with that flag enabled, so I will have to occasionally jump back in here. It's dangerous to do, so don't come crying to me if it deletes your C drive if you open up that flag, but it is a little bit annoying to have to babysit the terminal to approve all of the tool usages, which you can have this Claude. There's a Claude settings, which will allow for your repo things. So as you approve things, it will always allow them. So you'll have to use less of these over time, which is nice. Another thing I like with Claude is, as I understand it, it begins to open up the files that it edits or creates, which is quite nice. User rejected. That's not good. Let me restart this. I needed to approve actually writing the files. So that one will kick off. I'm going to start going through questions. This is kind of the end of our segment here, as I've explained how I edit things. So I'm going to scroll back up and just kind of look through any questions. If anybody has anything based off of what we talked about, feel free to put those questions in the chat. How good is it while writing contracts? That's a great question. If you're careful, it's really good, especially if you have to use those DeepWiki MCP tools to say, use these other repos as reference implementations, as like examples of a good contract. So I like to use the blend contracts and the source swap contracts, and I'll just paste those as links and say, use context 7 to research this repo, paste the repo, and then it'll use that as a reference, both for writing tests and for writing contracts. It'll use the appropriate storage, and you don't want to like depend on it. You need to go back and do research, but you'll find you have way less type errors than you will without using it. Oh, that's funny. You're right. I have not. Nope. If they've got one, we should play with it more and see. I do know. Yeah, it could be amazing. I have not tried it. Is there a public? Do they have like a public MCP endpoint? Just MCP. I don't even know how you spell Zeppelin. Whoops. .com. Zeppelin. Oh, sweet. Okay, I see. Yeah, add to cursor. Claude Desktop. This is amazing. Yeah. The only thing is I don't know how it would behave when you're not using an Open Zeppelin contract. So like if you were just building your own contract and not using an Open Zeppelin template, I'd be curious how it would behave in that case. But this looks awesome. We should definitely try this out. One thing to note is there's a difference between HTTP streaming and SSE streaming. SSE or SEE? I think it's SSE. This one obviously is using HTTP. So like, for example, when you're putting something into Claude, it will matter that you put in the right streaming type. So just keep that in mind, which they probably even include this in Claude Code. Yeah, there's the transport type HTTP instead of SSE. Nice. Yeah, so maybe we paste a link if we didn't to this. All right, sweet. Yep. Nice. Good job. You guys are on it. I'm just kind of reading through. Yeah, the question about does it make a difference to go back and forth between ask and agent? Ask will be a lot cheaper. Anytime you're writing code, it's going to be more expensive than just asking questions. I do wish it was a little bit smarter. Agent is getting a little bit smarter, even in the last couple of months, to know when you're not wanting to write code and you're just wanting rather to ask question. So I have been finding myself using the ask tab less. Claude also has, if you hit shift tab, you can toggle between a plan mode and an execute mode. So I'll use plan mode a lot. Sometimes I'll build a plan with Claude and then I'll cheat on it and move that plan over to cursor because I'm in charge. I'm the boss and I can do what I want. But I have found that Claude's really good at making plans. It's usually pretty good at executing on them, especially if I still have some Opus credits. But if I've run out of those, I can just take the plan and move it over to a different model. But again, context is everything, and the agent it'll have so much confidence in itself and absolutely screw it up, which means it's often a good idea to slow down, make a plan, and then execute on it. Because it'll often like have things in its plan that you're like, I actually really don't want it to do that. Or I should provide a little additional information or context about something it's missing in the plan that it's made, and so I'll continue to iterate on the plan, and the end result will be far better. Retry after extralate, so it's done a little bit more, seems like to me. Looks like it actually did most of its work in the launch, so it didn't actually put it in the index page. It put it in the launch page, which is fine. All of the rate limiting checks. I actually probably prefer this because it keeps the index cleaner and doesn't put a whole lot of logic in the index, but keeps it in the launch page. So I think I prefer that. The rate limiter file, I mean, it looks very, very similar to the one that was already made, maybe a little bit more spread out, like more variable names, which is sometimes nice. It makes the comments a little bit easier to follow the flow. But generally, pretty much the same, just a little bit different on the organization. It also made a separate testing file. So instead of just updating load test, it made a new test rate limit file, which is kind of cool. Doesn't even look like it uses the load test file, so that's interesting. Which is also fine. When we could run that, it's got a bunch of logs. Quite an intense testing file. Very nice. But anyway, that's Claude. We'll exit out of that. And that's really all there is to it. You've got big takeaways being spend a lot of time in the prompt, spend a lot of time crafting context, and by that I mean use MCP servers religiously to backfill accurate, up-to-date information that's very specific to your particular project. Play around with it. Believe that it can do it. That's a big part of this. Keep it in small chunks. Don't try to one-shot too much, but always be trying to expand, keep up to date with more recent models. There's some good people to follow. online. Maybe another time we can talk about some of the people that I follow to keep up to date with stuff. But a huge part of it is just try it. Begin to implement it into your flow. Like start using Cursor instead of VS Code. VS Code has the ability to do it. It's just not as good as Cursor is, in my opinion. Cursor is really built for this. VS Code is trying to backfill it, and I prefer Cursor every single time. Claude Code's been a ton of fun to work with. Even being outside of an IDE is quite nice. But the future is AI, whether you like it or not. And I would strongly encourage folks to be playing around with it, find out how it works best for you, even if it's just helping to explain things or adding comments or explaining a repo to you that you don't understand. It's an amazing tool and is going to help people code much faster. I didn't quite get through all the questions. Do you have cursor rules? I talked about that a little bit earlier. I don't. You can. I have found Cursor's gotten a lot better at inferring without rules. And I found that actually in many cases when I added rules, it wouldn't be creative enough. As the context windows have gotten so much longer and bigger over the last couple of months, I have found the rules files to actually be a limiting factor in its ability to innovate and think outside the box. So I have stopped using them, at least for now. There can be some things maybe that would be helpful, but I was also writing my cursor rules with AI, which was probably the problem. I don't know. But I've found that I haven't really needed them. Okay, I think we've got everything covered here. Thank you all so much for showing up. I look forward to seeing what you all build. Keep an eye out for this new game thing, Funk that I'm making. I would really strongly encourage more folks to actually go and explore this Fee Vault. This thing, it's not unique to Blend, right? It's a EIP 4626, or it's at least inspired by that. But it's this idea that essentially a bunch of users deposit into a smart contract account. That smart contract account is attached to the Blend pool and generates yield, but users can always deposit more and withdraw the total amount. The funds are never locked. And that contract then, that Fee Vault then has a pool of funds that it can do whatever it wants with. So I just wrote another contract that is putting in all kinds of like game mechanic logic for how to distribute the yield to the players, the depositors of that Fee Vault. It's an amazing tool. A lot of wallet folks are using it, where wallets deposit, instead of depositing straight into Blend, they deposit into Blend via the Fee Vault. And then the wallet can actually have a business model where it generates 5% off of the yield. So the users never lose anything. They just get a little bit less yield than they would if they just deposited straight into Blend. So there's a business model there. But I'm more interested in it about like yoinking all of the users' deposits and using it to do something interesting, like give money to game players. It's like the best. It's like super interesting way to do. What's a referral program where instead of just referring people, you actually like pay them money to join and play. That's sounds pretty enticing to me. I'm very interested in exploring this new business model that's possible because of things like the Fee Vault and the Source Swap contracts and the Blend contracts, this composability, which I don't have to write any of the hard, confusing, secure, conscious stuff. I can just build a goofy game engine that behind the scenes is distributing yield. That's awesome. And I'm doing it all because I'm not a smart guy, but I've got AI now, which can help me write stuff. And who knows if it'll be good, but let's try it. And as things break or aren't working correctly, that we collect issues and then the agents go and fix those issues. It's an upgradable contract. I don't know, yada, yada. I could go on for ages. We're already 6 minutes over, so I will let you go. As you build cool stuff, make sure to share. But I expect there's just zero excuses for anybody now. I just literally built a Asteroids game with sound effects with like 15 seconds of my voice. So you got no excuses. You should be building cool stuff now, solving problems, helping the world. No, but should we? We should ask the admin cave, because that might be a really cool thing to do. The Vibe Code Vault or something like that. Cool. All right. Well, everybody have a fantastic week. Happy August. And we'll catch y'all in the next one.